Hi, this is R.A. Sweeney. I'm here to talk to you again about another bit of a prayer from the book Prayers from the Time of Jesus. Today I'm going to continue talking about the Tefilla Yeshua, which we often call the Lord's Prayer, but I called the Prayer of Jesus. In the last video, we talked through the beginning of the prayer. We kind of introduced the prayer and its context a little bit, read through some of the translations of the Greek a little, and then talked through the idea of God being our Father. So today we're going to talk through the first half of the body of the prayer, and really these first lines focus on God and on His purposes. So the first line that we come across is for God to set His name apart. I added a little bit about setting it apart from all other names because I feel like contextually that's what Jesus was really getting at with the idea of setting His name apart. And when we talk about setting anything apart, it's the idea of sanctification or holiness that often comes up in religious contexts. And usually I'll hear people say that it's just simply setting the holy thing into a separate category, like a sorting system. I always think of it as, you've got your day-to-day dishes, and then you've got your fancy dishes for when you have company or special occasions. And it's really not like that. It's more of making something distinct, as in it's not like the rest. And so I think of like putting a fork in the spoon drawer. Yes, they're both eating utensils, but they're really not the same at all, and they don't belong in the same category. If you put them in the same spot, people are going to think you're a little bit crazy. And so that's really what this idea calls to mind. It's similar to the idea of Song of Songs. Oftentimes we call it the Song of Solomon, but the Hebrew title for it was Shir Hashirim, which means the Song of Songs. It's not the Song of Solomon, but the Song of Songs. And the idea there is there are a whole lot of songs that exist. There's a lot of love songs, like this song is a love song. Lots of songs out there, but really none of them have any business being compared to this one song because it's the best of songs, which is how it describes itself, the Song of Songs of Solomon, the best of songs. It's also like the idea of King of Kings. When we talk about Jesus being the King of Kings, there are a lot of kings out there. Some of them are really great kings, but none of them deserve to be compared to King Jesus. This also references back to Genesis 1 and the first 3 days of creation. It's all about God was distinguishing. He separated the light from the dark. He separated the waters above from the waters below. He separated the seas from the dry land. And all of that brought about good. It brought about life and abundance. And so that's what's going on here is we're asking God to make His name be known in a way that is so distinguished from any other name. We're asking His name to be recognized as separate and doesn't even belong in the same category as anyone else's name. And so that's kind of the idea behind that first line. I got a little bit more interpretive with that next line. It reads, "Bring near the dominion of you." But as I read the Torah, I kind of go back to Genesis 1 and 2, which tells the story of God made the Garden of Eden. He installed Adam and Eve as royal priests, as rulers in the garden, and they were given the task to rule under God's authority and also to spread that authority. They were supposed to fill the earth and subdue it, which is language of spreading that garden throughout all creation to the ends of creation. So every bit of what God had made would be covered with the garden, would be ruled by God's dominion. And so that's kind of what they were there for. But right there in Genesis 3, they abandon that purpose. They decide, hey, we're not going to do that. And they are separated from God. They're cut off from the kingdom. They don't get to experience a kingdom where God rules. And so then the rest of the Old Testament tells stories of people trying to meet that criteria to re-enter the garden and to re-enter God's dominion, and no one's able to do so. So this prayer really captures that longing to go back to Eden and to experience that reality that's ruled by God's love, His generosity, and His justice. So then the last line that we'll talk about starts out with a word that really describes bringing something into existence. So there wasn't something, and then there is something. And the object that the request is being made for is His plans or His purposes. So we're saying, God, bring your plans or your purposes. They're not here how they should be, and we're asking that you would bring them in. I translated the word desires, even though it's not exactly a right fit. And the reason is that the Hebrew word for desires is Eden. And so going back to what we were just talking about, this is desiring that God's paradise would permeate all creation, that we would be able to re-enter the garden. Really what I think Jesus was getting at, his wordplay, I think, of what He was doing there was the idea of bring Eden here. Bring your desires here. Bring your plans and your purposes here. Just like you have in the heavens, also do it like that here. And so it's really a petition for God to perform the work that he did in Genesis 1 and the work that he did in Genesis 2 and come do that same sort of thing again. Remake that garden. Bring us into that garden so that we can experience that rule. So that's the first half. In our next video, we'll talk through the second half of this video, or this prayer, and hopefully we'll get through the rest of it, and I hope you enjoy all of it. Thank you.